Oh my goodness. Seriously, I have to just do it. It's like I can tell myself I don't have to think about things that don't matter.
I was designed to do those things. How the hell does this guy know this about me?
It's impossible to not see.
When Dan read for my sister, she was like, he's psychic. She's like, how does he know that?
Yes.
She's like, it's human design, guys. Like, it's just a testimony of how legit it is.
Seriously, Danny was like FBI or CIA. He's like, how the hell does this guy know this about me?
Having my chart read, they were just thing after thing after thing that I was just like, wow, that's me.
This man is reading me and I've never met him before.
I was in the midst of one of the biggest emotional waves I've ever been in my life, and he saved my life.
It seems like everybody has the same reaction. It's that aha moment, and they want to find out more. Hello, everybody. Yuletide blessings. Today is the winter solstice. So welcome to the Human Design Advantage podcast. My name is Jen, and decoding the matrix for us is Danny Guru.
Jen, it's such a pleasure to be here. How are you?
I am good. It is also Dan's birthday today, so happy birthday to you.
Yeah, thanks, everyone. I turned 57 today. I have a solstice announcement to make.
Go right ahead.
Yeah, the actual solstice moment is at 4:48 Eastern Standard Time. So back that up an hour, depending on where you are. And I was sort of suggesting to everyone make a prayer at that moment. Your own individual, unique addition to the light side of our universe. I thought that would be really, really sweet. I'm gonna.
Yes, I've actually been doing things all day, kind of tapping into the energy. Today is a wonderful day. It actually marks the new year in the energetic calendar. So it's a perfect day for you to let go of what you don't want to be taking in, what's been holding you back, as well as manifesting what it is that you want to bring in. The solstice marks where the light is actually going to start increasing on the planet. Today is the longest period of where it will be the darkest. And in the summer solstice is when we have the most light on in a day. So I love that you said that. So that's perfect to do today.
4:48 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
Wonderful. We will definitely, I will be definitely tapping into that energy.
Maybe I'll see you in there, Jen.
Yeah, I just looked at the clock and it was 2:22. How synchronistic. So
it happens to us all the time, it seems.
Yeah,
so
we're actually pre-recording this, guys. So if the time gets off, actually everybody will be airing when we air this. They won't be able to do that.
Oops. Okay. Sorry for the teaser. I just realized.
You can still tap into the energy. And still set those intentions. I highly recommend that everybody does that. So, but either way, we're testing the pre-record. Today is December 21st, and we will be going over one of my favorite philosophers of all time. I love his teachings, and that is Manly P. Hall. So I can't wait to dive into his chart. I was really excited to see that, one, he is a Pisces and I am a Pisces, and two, he is a 5-1 profile.
We're getting a lot of that 5-1 profile.
Yes, we are.
Yep. It seems to be, it's this last century was the century of the 5-1 profile, it seems. They've been the majority of our clarions and attractors of society and all of that good stuff.
Well, if for those of you who are viewing, if you don't know who Manly P. Hall is, I will just give a little brief description. He is famous for his book that came out in 1929, which was The Secret Teaching of All Ages. It is a really big book. I have not fully read it yet, but if you are interested in wanting to read it, definitely send me a message and I can send that to you. He is a philosopher. He teaches a lot about Hermetic principles, alchemy. He was very knowledgeable. He was a lover of wisdom, and he achieved a lot within his life. He started at a very young age. He became an ordained minister at the age of 26, and he did several. You can YouTube him and find several of his teachings and all sorts of different things up until the age that he passed away, which I think was in 19. When did he pass away?
I'm not sure.
I think it was in 1990. I almost had that correct. I should have gone with what my gut was telling me. In 1990, he finally passed away, and he did teachings all the way up until the time that he passed away. So, very knowledgeable man. He was a 33-degree Mason. So, if you know anything about that, that is, to get to a 33-degree level, you have to be really well educated, especially in the Hermetic principles. And I like to pull in people like this because part of human design is based on the Kabbalah, which does, it is part of Hermetic teachings. So without that knowledge, that would be a missing component in human
Yeah.
design, as far as I'm concerned. So
No, it wouldn't have been able to have been synthesized into the new form. We would be missing. I'm not familiar enough with the Kabbalah. However, I can tell you it would remove an important essence to whatever. So the synthesis wouldn't be the same. Human design wouldn't be the same without it. Yeah,
yes.
I agree.
So
So, Mr. Manley, let's take a look at his chart. I'm going to pull up my screen here.
here we go.
Wow,
He was born March 18th, 1901.
Yep. So what you're looking at here, obviously, is a super duper busy manifesting generator. I can tell you he's got 1, 2, 3, 4 of the same channels I have, and he's a single definition. First thing I want to point to is all of this rightness, the arrows.
Yes.
This is a design, especially the top 2 arrows. That means both his brain and his mind, his personality, who he thinks he is, was an ocean taking in, and his brain system that's in charge of either strategically digging out data that it wants or open and receptive, just taking in all the data that the mind processes, that the brain itself processes. Both of them are right. And with the top 2 arrows facing right, this makes this man he was always taking in everything. And same thing with his view. His view was peripheral. And so that means he would take in the entire environment. So when he finally started speaking, and he's designed to speak, he's got 3 different channels connecting up his throat center. There's no shutting this man up.
No, if you've ever listened to any of his teachings, they're long. But even his book, I mean, that can tell you.
Well, what's striking about this variable is humanity sees the leftness in the arrows. Wherever you have leftness, wherever you have a left-facing arrow, that's what essentially humanity sees, what the people see when they see you. As the conditioning in us and the generations go by, Jennifer, this will start to change and people will see the holistic being more quickly. But in our current time, conditioned as we are en masse, they see the strategic in the person. So he has one lower left-hand arrow pointing to the left. That's a person's environment. That's basically it's the binary is called the observer or the observed. If it's facing left, he became the observed. So his whole ocean of knowledge that just always kept pouring through this very unique individual mind. At the time, people would have called him freakish. Some people called him a freak.
I bet.
I bet. And many people said, "Oh my God, you can explain stuff really well." And so he got, he made his way being able to explain stuff. Um,
Mhm.
but all that stuff that was coming in, what people saw was that they observed him, and he looked busy in his environment. He would have been busy speaking, busy appearing like what the manifesting generator channel 3420 says to do. It just appears busy, the channel of charisma. So as soon as something came into his ocean, because all that definition on the left-hand side is unconscious, that's his identity, his power, and his right now are unconscious in him. He had no choice about his response in the now. So he would have appeared almost mystical to people because he always had a response in the now.
He was a mystic.
Well, as he should be.
Mhm.
He's got the right tuning fork to be exactly that, or pick a different word. But all of that red on the left hand side means that all of his generative capacity, meaning everything touching that generator motor, 34 and 5 being the primary gate. So 5 says, I am fixed patterns. I will fix the pattern of this. And 34 says, I am the power to fix the pattern. And I am generated. I can sustain that. I can sustain it and sustain it. And no one can stop me from sustaining it unless they want to kill me. And gate 10 says, I am the love of myself. We'll be going over this gate for our Sunday show as it's part of the vessel of love. And it's always been part of the Christmas theme because gate 10 is always in the sky on my birthday and for Christmas. And then gate 20 says all that stuff, all your love, all your power. It's your love of yourself, by the way, first, and the love of humanity next. And all of that comes out in the now. His love for himself inside of being within humanity and the ability to handle extremes allowed this man to create fixed patterns on the stuff he would explain and the things he would make other people experience. This was his design. I just keynoted his design.
A lot of his teachings are about learning about the universe that's happening within inside. And to get to that point, you really have to do a lot of self-love and tapping into what's going on in your internal world.
It
So that
became
makes
absolute.
sense.
Yeah, it became absolute in this man, with the exception of, I don't know how he would have handled his emotional channel. He's got 2 of them. And so the first one, the channel of community, which is 40 to 37 between the ego and the solar plex,
Mm-hmm.
half of it is conscious. So he's very conscious of his emotional wave because it's
Mm-hmm.
black. His love of work and his ability to transmit a message and to manipulate the memory and use his memory as it poured in to then turn around and manipulate that into a great explanation for everyone else. Think about it, when we manipulate words, we have to manipulate the words because we're choosing the words as we speak, right? And so we're always picking what's the right word for what I'm trying to speak. That's the manipulation. It's entirely, we're supposed to do that. That's entirely appropriate. And that would have been a big part of the manipulation for him. So he was constantly had the ego willpower to drive for the purposes of the love of the community, to drive the love of himself, to work, to put the message out. And it was always a message of something he experienced. So when I get over to the other emotional aspect of him, 35 all the way down to 30, the only thing he's missing there is 41. This is a heavily experiential stream of awareness. It wants to experience, and it goes through a crash wave process, meaning it goes way up, and there's times when he's absolutely intoxicated. And was he married? Was he married more than once?
I don't know. That's a good question.
Okay.
Yes, he was married to one lady. No, 2. He was married twice.
Okay. Yeah, that would make sense. Very often when I see this definition, the power of this definition, I will recognize, not a guarantee, but that the very first marriage wasn't entered into according to all the various degrees of how he would be a responder as a generator, and how quickly he would catch the other person up and himself get caught up in the high of that emotional wave. And suddenly, yeah, let's get married, without literally living through that wave for months or a year or two before such a thing happened. This experiential emotional wave it crashes up and it crashes down. It's striking in that and how it does that. And when it goes down, I don't know if he ever allowed other people to see it, but there were times when this man was incredibly, incredibly sad and low, and where he would have picked up some of his greatest fruitful knowledge, by the way, because it's the low side of the wave that drives our intelligence, and it drives our wisdom and our capacity to become the knower and the seer of what's next and what we've just experienced. It becomes the thing that reflects so much, but only after. And with the power of this wave, this could go on for months. And so he entered into his first marriage as oops.
It was his secretary.
She had the hots for him, let me tell you.
Yes, and it says that there's little known, but she did. It says the marriage was not a happy one, and she did end up committing suicide.
Oh, the poor thing. Well, I'm sorry to hear that.
But he married a long time friendship after that in 1950. So his first wife passed away in 1941, and then he married a longtime friend in 1950. So
that makes perfect sense.
And she was alive till 2005. So from 1950 till the time of his death, they stayed married.
That's a beautiful story. I love it. So that all makes sense. This experiential crash wave is very sexual. So he and his secretary had a wild fling. And then he spent some time in between the first marriage and the second marriage, basically, whether it was covert or out in the open, I don't know. But this man he was into plenty of stuff as it relates to his sexuality. You don't have this channel in your body graph and not experience the fantasy and the hunger and the desire that comes along with our human experiential way. And it's not just the sexuality, it's all of it. He wanted to experience himself talking about etheric things. He wanted to experience the vibe and the buzz of the crowd as it got bigger and he became more notable for his speakings and his teachings. He wanted to experience, the first automobiles. He wanted to experience going fast. He wanted to experience shooting a gun, whatever it was. If we had a good biography on him, we would find that he was a very experiential man. He tried this, he tried that. He was probably in a hot air balloon at one point. He probably, hopped whatever all the things were that were coming along that were new would have lit him up.
Mm-hmm.
Lit him up. So that's another thing about him. But now that's not the type of thing, because back then anything sexual would be dogma. There would be correct.
Well, when you get into like the type of teachings that he was in, sex means sacred energy exchange. And that is actually the orgasm is actually what triggers the Kundalini awakening. So when you do learn how to control and embrace the sexual energy that is happening, you can enlighten yourself. So this is a man, again, who has wrote many, 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 many books on this. So on some level, I'm sure that he knew about that energy, how to manipulate that energy, how to control it, how to have it go up and down the body. And he probably started to test that out at a young age.
Absolutely. This is generated, remember. So it's in sexual being of a generator. Look at his moon, 30 line 4. it becomes a pace of things that can beg misfortune at a younger age. It's about the desire for a feeling. It's called the clinging fire, the gate of feelings. And it's this recognition that things can be an illusion, and limitation then gets accepted as fate. So it's about the clinging fire to cling to the feeling that you wish to experience, and the hunger you have to go through the crisis and get to the final expectation of it. And when you surrender to the expectation not being yours to have, the expectation has you. You don't have it as it's happening. So you'll either receive it or not. And so somewhere along the way, he had to come to peace to that. And he had a great deal of emotional energy surrounding it. That's for sure. So I would love to see more about what it was to have this man become emotionally volatile at times. Because this is a manifesting generator. It's not just frustration. When you have 3420 as a definition, especially when it's unconscious, extreme anger and rage can come out of that thing. It's not that it's meant to last, because he's a generator. It's just meant it becomes a response to the frustration. I'm not saying this was something that he was living out all day long and he was an angry man. Not at all. I'm talking about in moments at time. I would love to see a very personal biography of this man, because there was moments of time. You ever have a boyfriend, Jen, or I've had guy friends that, like, you know, they suddenly get so frustrated that they're willing to throw the TV out the window. You know,
my ex was always, anytime it was like a big temper tantrum. Yes, I do know that.
That temper tantrum. Now, he would have learned to control this over time. You know what I'm saying? And depending on his upbringing and his parents and all that, maybe he didn't have much of it at all, but it wasn't non-existent. It was there. And
Yes.
so, and it's unconscious. It's not like he can control it. It comes out. And so it comes out when there's too much resistance, when he's not satisfied with the things he's doing and the place he's in and the rhythm of things. So, and he is trying to commit to a process in gate 29. He's trying to push a direction in gate 40. He's trying to fix the pattern of all of that in gate 15. And then gate 30 in his moon says, I am driven to find out what it feels like to have this feeling. He's driven to it. But it's a fourth line. So when he met his second wife, he was finally driven to find out what is it to be in love with somebody. Because that's part of the human experiential way. It's part of the vessel of love, which he has two gates of. And it ends up being part of what he would have responded to. I would love to get the design of the Mrs. that was the second Mrs. because she kept him in line, apparently.
Maybe. I'm not too sure. We'll definitely have to do research on that. I do want to touch on something before you go to the next thing.
Yeah.
The emotional, like, you know, because I'm the teachings that he teaches is what I absolutely am all about. It's what I love to study. And I have found on this journey through my emotional waves, you know, one, to even become a 33-degree Mason, you have to have a tremendous amount of self-awareness. And that means what's going on inside and outside. And through my emotional waves, it allows me to go in deeper within myself, because he believed, and I believe, that your outer world is a reflection of your inner world. I mean, Dan, both me and you have done Ho'oponopono. That is, you know, getting into the law of inspiration and out of the law of memory and data, is because, you know, whatever is happening in your etheric field, you are attracting ultimately from the inside. So I think maybe at a younger age, he didn't quite understand all the emotional waves, but I bet over time he really started to utilize them as a tool to gain that self-awareness and a deeper understanding of who we are as human beings.
With the right serendipity, Jennifer, it's not a big stretch at all. It can happen to anyone with this definition, whereby they realize the downside of the wave is both temporary and fertile. And suddenly it doesn't become quite so bad, because on the upside of the wave, this man was intoxicating. It was intoxicating. And people would have loved him, and his emotional tone would have come out of that 36, 35, and it would have come out of that 37, 40. So look at these two things together. 36, 35, I will experience stuff. Experientialness. It's gate 36 creates the expectation, and gate 35 makes the expectation takes place and does the expecting of it. Gate 36 basically just creates it, doesn't know what it created. Gate 35 says, we're going to manifest this. I'm now expecting it. And it becomes this channel of expectation, basically. I expect it's going to be great. I expect I want to try it in a canoe. I expect I'm going to run naked in the rain and it'll feel good. Whatever, all the things. And so that is something that is seductive. This channel is very seductive. Again, it's laden with its own physical human sexuality, and that's always seductive. He's a fifth line in his profile. That's seductive. And then the voice that would have come out of him primarily, however, like the energy behind the voice that people trusted the most was this 4037, the channel of the tribe, the community, the home, the support of the tribe, the desire to see that everyone is fed. And we don't just feed food now. We feed knowledge. We feed awareness. We feed people with something new. So the experiential brings the new experience. And then the channel of community brings the sensitivity to be supportive and stay at it and put your shoulder to the wheel. 40 says, I'm the love of work. And 26 says, I will transmit this message. And it's my message. And I'm the smartest guy I know about it. And you better listen because it's really good. And he didn't say those things, but the energy behind him knew that, is what I'm getting at. It's like, dude, this is good stuff. You're going to want to listen to this. And so there he was with primarily this ego willpower to get this stuff out. All that seductiveness, all that manifesting generatorness on the left-hand side is great. I mean, it moves things quickly in the moment, but what holds that test of time? The channel of community and the channel of explanation between the ajna and the throat. That's what the channel of community says. No, our bargains. I'm in a bargain till the end. It'll make a bargain right through till the end as a potential. If the other person is keeping up their side of the bargain, if the bargain is essentially kept, they'll remain supportive, deeply, deeply, humanistically, tribally supportive. So he didn't have to know you to know that he wanted to impart his explanation upon you for you to have the experience of awakening and whatever it was he knew that he knew. He was supportive about all of that. So this ego gave him the motorized energy essentially to day after day and week after week stay at his calendar, right? Stay at his commitments, stay at his event book to keep the knowledge flowing. It was in support of humanity, support of anyone who would have been in his tribe. Incredibly supportive.
He published over 150 volumes of books.
Egads. Yeah. Okay. Well, that's the ego putting its shoulder to the wheel. And everything else in his body graph. Don't get me wrong. He could have published 100 books just having the channel of explanation, for God's sakes. But
he's got hours and hours and hours of lectures. The book that everybody really knows him from, The Secret Teaching of All Ages, is 640 pages. And that's not big print. That is tiny print. Like, there are a lot of words on one page. So he had all this knowledge really just pouring out of him.
It was pouring out of him because look at this beautiful. So gate 15 and gate 10 in his identity center, in the G center, the love of the self, the love of humanity. Coincidentally, modesty and behavior in gate 10. So the ability to innately just know how to behave. Okay. For any given moment, it's his love of himself through his behavior. And then the love of the extremes. In other words, the gate of extremes, 15, the ability to basically ride within the extremes of two energetic poles, two energetic things, or three, or a bunch of energetic stuff, to ride within the extreme of all that and bring it modest. It's the I Ching called 15 the gate of modesty, because it took extreme things and finally brought them into the fold to make them modest. His love of humanity was accentuated by his need to support humanity on one side, and then his need to experience all of that, and this feeling he would have constantly had to experience it, all of it being essentially channeled through this unconsciousness of him. It's the responsive identity and love of the self in the now. I'm busy with my love of myself pouring out of me in the now, and the rest of this design is as a generator, manifesting generator. So that's fast. So, and all of the rightness of his arrows, we're always taking in data. Our cognition works as a taking in process or a spitting out process. I'm a taking in process on that side of my body graph. You are too, Jen. We take in, and that's why we channel out so much, because we've taken so much in. So his whole body was a giant tuning fork by which, as soon as there was stimuli to respond to, like an idea, like a person, like an event, like something he needed to speak to, something he had come to know, anything, you name it. As soon as that responder is up, expending its energy, he was choiceless in what that thing responded to. So once he started speaking, he became a responsive machine responding to what he just said last. He didn't need a script. His books were written in real time, if I had to guess.
I believe so.
I'm not saying editors didn't go back and make edits as it relates to punctuation or grammar mistakes here and there, but the content flowed out of him. He didn't sit there and dawdle and toil over every word of all of his books. If he toiled over anything, it would have been passages here and there that he would stop to try and maybe word a certain way. And then the rest of it was just this flow of consciousness, because when you have all that definition and it's unconscious, that means the responder is responding with its truth, independent of your will. Meaning, even though the mind would get involved, as the not self mind always does, it can't stop this responder in the moment. It's unconscious. It's unbastardizable, in other words. This man could not be easily bastardized. People couldn't take him off his game. And in case that 33-degree Mason stuff carried with it any of the stuff that's not so good about when you get up there, you know, with sacrificing and cabal stuff.
Well, that's not part of it. They just, you know, the whole thing about the 33-degree Mason is that it's more of when you get to, you know, some people at that certain level, it is they want to keep the knowledge to themselves, where a lot of his books taught about that type of stuff and who we really are.
Well, let me point something out.
Huh?
Finish your thought. Sorry.
Yeah, no. So not all 30, that's not part of being a 33-degree Mason. It's just that the 33, what the 33 means is we have 33 vertebrates within our spine. The Kundalini is at the base of the spine. For the Kundalini, which is the caduceus, to rise, and for a human to have enlightenment where they are connected to their higher selves, their oversoul, and the divine, for that knowledge to come in, you have to activate the 33 degrees. That's what the 33 is. So when he got to that level, this is a man who is really enlightened. And just reading a little bit behind, you know, about him now, I mean, a lot of his books were published and when he was young. I mean, this is something that he really started to do at a very young age. So he was probably somebody that was constantly trying to, as a young child, testing and wanting to learn all sorts of different things.
Well, in case there was any political pressure from the Masons, because not all of them would have, some, like you said, some of them hid the knowledge. So if there's any pressure, hey, dude, quit giving away the knowledge. That may have come in on him, but he couldn't listen to that. He could not abide by that. This is a man with incredible individual definition, an incredible amount of it, 4 channels of individuality that say, no, you can't tell me what to do. I dismiss your influence upon me. So he wouldn't have wanted to shut up because he has a desire to support a community and transmit a message that is of his explanation. Look at his channel 4323, between the head and the ajna. It's all conscious. And it's spitting out and working with all those unconscious ideas that resonate so deeply with him. All those unconscious ideas are wicked, wicked important to him. It becomes basically his law. It becomes something that is natural. It's called, the ideas get called out of him. His ideas were his calling. His calling became the law, and it resonated with him deeply. And so that all turned into an explanation. The channel of explanation, the channel of the design of looking like a genius or looking like a weirdo, depending on how you can explain stuff, called the channel of structuring 4323, is a design to take powerful insights that happen in the now, meaning you can't control them, and then metamorphosize them into an explanation, gate 23. Transition them into the explanation that can actually explain something. So as long as he could explain it, then he felt so empowered, and he was empowering others. So here's a design that won't feel whole unless in support of others it's empowering them. Here's a design that won't feel whole unless in support of the others he can experience the sense of his explanation having empowered them in the now.
That's probably why he did so many lectures, because, you know, he has a crowd.
Right.
And why he got into ministry.
Dude, that would have been addictive to him, essentially, you know, like in a feel-good way, in a really just high vibe type of way.
It would have made his emotional waves go up.
It would have put him high on the wave and stuff. But sooner or later, I wonder if he questioned why he went down on his wave. I just wonder. I don't know.
Oh, you can bet.
Yeah, he had to have. Well,
absolutely.
Yeah. So hopefully he came up with some of those answers, Jen, because we didn't have all these beautiful words for him at the time. But
I feel on some level he did.
He did. That's what I sense too, with the conviction of what she speaks. So all of this rightness is just, again, it's beautiful. I'd like to point out, so this really is striking. The channel of rhythm, which is 15 and 5 between the sacral and the G center. I have that channel.
Oh, this one, sorry.
Yeah.
You said 5 and I just doubled it in my head. So I was looking at 10.
Yep. No, that's so funny. So that's a channel of rhythm. It can drive other people crazy because it pulls people into his rhythm. So he was designed to pull people into his rhythm. And then 34 up to 10, that channel, it's all unconscious, from 34 off the sacral up to 10 in the identity, the channel of exploring one's own self-exploration. It's called the channel of exploration. It's about centering yourself, meaning being self-centered, in a way that's your self-exploration. It's about exploring your own inner self and concerning yourself with your own behavior. So he was always concerning himself with his own behavior as it was going to be displayed out into the world. That's a great deal. I have that channel. And then 34 all the way up to 20, the channel of charisma, where awareness must become deed. I'm aware of the thought. I will speak it out loud. I just said a thought a second ago, and the next thought that has to come out is now this, because awareness keeps becoming deed in the now. And that seems charismatic. It's a person who looks like action. So with that variable in his environment, he looked like Dr. Action with all of his right arrows as tentacles into the ethereal and the unknown and the etheric and the God space. People would have felt that from him, but they would have seen it in his action, his environment, that he brought into an environment a sense of movement and action. Everywhere he went, that's what he brought. Now, he himself was at times insecure with that. It's like, I don't know. I hope someone doesn't throw me a curveball that I have to strategically think about. That would throw him off his game. someone gets out of the subject matter by which he's being called into. But yeah, and so I have that 34, 10, 20. I have that channel of rhythm. I have the one hanging gate that he's got up top, 63, the gate of doubt. That forces a logical process. So he had to go through doubt. The doubt. I have that gate in my body graph. It forces me into a logical process. I have to keep going back to it. And it has to be okay that I doubt stuff. 63 in the head center pointing down.
Yeah.
Yep. And then and I have a gate 43 in my body graph. I've always got to explain stuff. He's got the whole channel. He's a design to explain stuff. So I love this guy. I wish he was still around talking to this day. He's moving out of the cross of Eden, where we just came out of. Eden is about being kicked out of Eden. And his incarnation cross is moving into 24 hours later. This man would have been born on the right angle cross of the vessel of love. He was in the vessel of love. Yeah, he would have. Just
in March.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's the vessel is there's 4 quarters to the year, and there's one per quarter. Yep.
Okay, that makes
one
sense.
Per quarter. So it's at the seasons.
Yes.
The vessel always transcends the goes across the seasons. So this cross of the plane made him basically want to move around some. Did he move around at all?
Well, he was born in Canada, and I know that he passed away in California. So I don't know much about, if he traveled that much.
He traveled to give his talks and do his things. He had to have.
Yeah, he did a research. The Philosophical Research Society was founded in Los Angeles. So, and he did that in 1934. And then remember, he also experienced the time period through the Great Depression too. So I'm not too, I'm pretty sure that he did. Huh?
He was designed to survive the Great Depression.
Right. I'm not too sure. I'm pretty sure he did do some moving around.
Yeah, he did move around. The plane does that. The left angle cross of the plane brings the hunger to move the rest of the way out of Eden into the vessel of love, where the universal love of all things in humanity and the self can become an example to others. He was in between those two worlds, and that's what he was living out. The perfect person to not pick if you're trying to hide something. If you want something that he latches on, if he catches it and latches onto it, and you expect him to now keep it secret, can't happen. He's a generator. In response, he's just going to spit it out. His variables, meaning his arrows, are pointing mostly to the right. That means any person can come and draw it from him. Anyone.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I have something to say on that one. So his teachings and I being a hermetic and getting into alchemy, the one thing that you have to have is self-control. You have to have discipline. If he would just spit things out, he would have never gotten to the degree in masonry that he did.
Well, then
discipline is the self-discipline is a must. To be an alchemist, you have to have self-discipline.
I'm not sure how that fully applies here, because with his openness, if someone went to draw something out of him, he would have had to censor himself.
Absolutely.
Okay, well then, when he wasn't censoring himself, he was a giant fountain that could be drawn from infinitely. That's where, so in the crowds, in the ministry, in his talkings, he didn't have to censor himself.
No, but he probably taught himself how to have the information flow in a way that was in some way like it was not practice, but he trained himself to be able to flow that information at a certain level. I can't really describe
Right.
what exactly
Well,
I'm saying.
the
I only
profile
I know
support
that
that.
because when I'm going through my hermetic teachings, the exercises that they do, the first one, it's like boot camp, and it is all about self-control. It's the first thing that you start to learn. That goes with your thoughts, what's coming out of your mouth, what you do, all of that. So knowing who he was and the books that he wrote and everything like that, he probably started to teach himself at a very young age how to practice that self-control. By all means, I'm not saying that it's easy. It
Well,
does
that's
require
supported by his
practice.
profile. His profile supports what you're saying. The
Right.
investigator, that is basically the chameleon, doesn't come out, doesn't do anything until it's investigated. The fifth line that learns pretty quickly that it has to be practical. So during his 33-degree Mason work, he would have to be practical. It wasn't practical to speak, so he wouldn't speak. I could see that. But if someone asked him a direct question as a 33-degree Mason, he always had the answer.
Oh,
Like,
absolutely.
yeah, he was the answer man for just about everything. You know, people would have been impressed with him inside of
But
that.
I'm saying, like, I know with the generator, sometimes they say things without thinking about what's coming out.
Right.
I'm just saying the level that this man got, he would have never gotten to that level if he didn't have some form of self-control
This
that
this
he knew.
definition is essentially to be correct into itself is essentially supposed to say things without thinking about it before it comes out. They're supposed to just speak freely and speak freely,
That's
basically.
probably why he had so much knowledge about what he taught about,
That
because
makes sense.
that's probably all he talked about. But this man did know, I would say, knew how to keep a secret.
I would say so too, because apparently he did. Gate 12 says, I'll be cautious about what I articulate. The 5-1 profile says, I'll be cautious about what I articulate. The
Yes.
gate of crisis says, there's been enough crisis. And gate 6 says, there's been enough conflict. I'll be cautious about what I talk about. His gate 10-1 says, I'll be cautious about my behavior right now. I'm not done investigating it. Looks like there might be some pitfalls here. And then he would have gone ahead and not liked that. Whether he did, even though he did it, there's aspects he would have absolutely hated, by the way. Other men were in control of his ascent through those 33 degrees, and there were other beings in control of that in any way. If they weren't in alignment, he would have hated that because his channel of structuring has this very particular strong voice. It's the voice that says, I know. It just says, I know. This is the channel of the knower. Doesn't make him correct. It's just that the energy coming out of this powerful mental system of his was an energy that sounds like I know, rather than I believe, or it's my opinion that, or possibly blah blah blah. It just I know. Oh no, I it's this. It's a sound that sounds like it knows, without saying the words. Oh, I know. Although he might say, oh, I know, but very often he might just skip that part and just start speaking in an authoritative way that sounds like it knows, backed up by all this power, backed up in his rhythm with his fixed patterns and all the information he's taken in that's now being drawn out of him as he speaks. See, the conscious definition in him draws out the unconscious and the right-facing variables that has all its power in the now. So it's this perfect little machine that was like, the conscious stuff was like, well, I know, I'm a knower. He didn't might have those words for it. Don't know, blah, blah, blah. And he's structuring the explanation, the channel of explanation. He's an explaining madman, deaf to the other sometimes. I don't hear you. I heard you said something. No. And he's talking, saying his thing. And then the unconscious definition of him is constant, and the rightness in his variables is constantly feeding him the stream he needs to know. He didn't always know that he knew all he needed to know until it was coming out of him, is what I'm getting at. And I think that's precious. That another reason why it would have been good for him to speak in the now. I bet you he ticked a few people off along that 33-degree Mason way. There was a couple of people he made nervous, I would bet, but I don't know.
I would bet I can relate to what you just said at the last one. Because of his teachings, he was very self-aware. I mean, when you start diving into these type of teachings and you really start to dive into your internal world, you know to step out of the mind. So as we say in human design, the mind being the passenger, and just letting your design work. I mean, he was already doing that.
Yeah.
He was self-aware enough to know to step out of the mind
Step
and let
out of
his
the
higher
way.
self take a lead.
Yes. So he
So
stepped out
once
of his own way.
Yes. So once he stepped out of the mind, what I teach is that, everything that you want to know in life is inside of you, because it is. Just like his teachings, they were channeled out from out of him. Human design was channeled out.
Right, right.
Anything that we ever want to know, you can find out for yourself through really doing that internal work. So he knew this at some level, and that's why he has so many lectures that you can listen to, because it was like him stepping out of his own way and allowing the information to just flow and teach.
As I was listening to him, I heard the flow of consciousness just pouring through. And
Yes.
yes. And I was like, God, this guy just never runs out of words. And he's
Well,
not trying to run out of words.
it's the difference between knowing and knowing from your inner gnosis.
Right.
Gnosis is different from what other people associate with knowing. He knew that at the end of the day, in his human form, he really didn't know nothing. But the inner gnosis that he knew, that's what was coming out. That's what his
And
teachings are about.
and it came out loud and clear, Jen. I mean, really, as
Absolutely.
I was listening to him, I was in amazement. I had no visual to watch. So that drove me crazy for about the first 30 seconds until I just dialed back and started listening. I was like, oh God, I don't need to see anything. I can already see it, you
I
know?
don't I don't know if he does have any, but
Didn't matter.
back then it was mainly radio.
It was mainly radio, right? It was voice, and that's great.
Yes.
So this profile, the fifth line, is designed to attract society. It's designed to be attractive. It's about attractiveness. This man was never out in a very disheveled way. He was always put together. And people appreciated that about him, and it further bolstered the mysteriousness of his attractiveness and the seduction of it all. So he had everything going on by which to attract people to his message. And these 5-1s are born messengers of whatever their cross is, and whatever their definition is that's supporting them in their type and their strategy. They're messengers of their type and strategy and the definition within. The 5-1 is the messenger of their type and strategy and the definition within. That's what they're the messenger of. And then all the other stuff, and the humans and the people and the support and the things they learn along the way. But messengers, if they're lucky, they can become quite hermited and just aloof and distant because of like paranoia, and not wanting anyone to want anything more from them. That can happen, but it seems like he had the right balance going on. I wanted to read off his 36 and his gate 6. So 36 in his Sun Earth personality, Sun Earth, that driving force in him. It's called darkening of the light, the gate of crisis. This rule about cycles in which decline is a natural but not an enduring stage. The awareness that the decline, meaning the down of the wave, going down on your wave of experience, is not an enduring process. It's a natural but not enduring stage, moment, speck of time. So that's what this is here getting. And his is called the underground, perfected survival regardless of conditions, immunity to crisis as both generator and as a survivor.
Mm.
In his younger years, when he was trying to figure himself out, he would have been betrayed by that self-betrayal and nervousness in times of crisis. So there are times when he experienced both. And then when he experienced the latter, it was his awareness guardrail to bounce back into the former, the perfected survival regardless of conditions, immunity to crisis that as both generator, which he is, and as a survivor, in case it wasn't a generator type. So designed to survive. just the immunity from the crisis. And think of it, it's called the underground. That's a fifth line theme. I'm going to go underground now. I'm just going to watch. I don't want everyone looking in on me. I'm going to look in on them. The fifth line can be likened to the person on the second floor who opens their drapes an inch to look down. The people down on the street looking up, they're like, hey, what is that? Who is that up there? And the mystery begins, and the seduction begins, and the want to know what that fifth line individual up there is all about begins. And so in the underground, it's practical. Hey, I'll come down there and hang out with you guys if it's practical. There's got to be something that isn't going to bring me down this path for which there's no return for me. That's the practical it's looking for, to go down a path that doesn't leave him with absolutely no return, meaning into the abyss. It's not practical to get drunk every night. It's not practical. For instance, it will lead him down a road of cognitive decline, and that's the one thing he couldn't have, for instance. So I would guess
no.
Yep.
No.
And so when I get to gate 6, so that's that practicality of the underground. When I get to gate 6, it's called arbitration. Faith derived from analytical diligence and emotional control that permits a higher authority to judge the conflict. It's the gate of the conflict. So 36 and gate 36 and gate 6, as part of this incarnation cross, are about crisis and conflict management. Not just crisis and conflict, but crisis and conflict management, transpersonal, looking out into the future management, or over the other. So he was always successfully navigating the conflict without letting it basically come into him too hard for too long. It was a sensitivity to conflict can lead to the avoidance of the conflict. It could also lead to the avoidance of intimacy. And whereas when he was insensitive to the concerns of others, it would lead to conflict. Gate 6 brings conflict and resolution. It brings resolution. The conflict is, do I be intimate here? Do I be intimate here? And the resolution is the answer. And then the feeling and the experience of it afterwards. So he answered that at some point in time for himself, and then he became a flippin' master of it. Surfing the conflicts and having the crisis like the shockwave when we read out Gate 51. And the ability to withstand it, that fifth line quality of Gate 51 in the ego, the shock, the ability to accept the shock and ride it out as a normal process, thereby withstanding the shock until you can hop off that wave and restore yourself to a normal set of patterns. So the ability to withstand shock by resonating with it. Same here, ability to withstand crisis and navigate the conflict by essentially resonating to it, and then hopping off after you've steered it. So this was his way. I mean, it fits him to a T from where I'm concerned.
Yes, it does.
Yeah. The only hang-ups I see here, because it's a single definition, the biggest ones are just the 3 open centers, because 2 of them are pressure centers under pressure to move his thoughts along, is what that would have read like. And the need to have people around in order to get your thoughts out, because that's where it feels safe, the spleen. No activations on the spleen. So
yeah,
he didn't know what to fear, which was good. And in those moments where he wasn't sure if he was actually safe, he wasn't sure quickly. It would quickly happen. But with other people around, they were always supportive. He imbued support onto every crowd he was around. Now, the ladies in the crowd might have been imbued with some sexuality. The dudes in the crowd would have been imbued with certain power that they heard him speak. The whole world was imbued with his explanations in the moment and the experiences. But that channel of community is like a heartbeat, and it just kept beating and beating and beating, and that sensitivity and the supportiveness is what really, when people got truly close to him, they would have felt that. And that kept the channel community, keeps the community. The experiential crash wave doesn't keep the community. It says been there, done that, and moves on to the next thing. That's why it's called the cross of the plane. He moved on to the next subject, next topic, next town, next meeting, next talk. The community holds it together. The generativeness is the power and the force that was willing to do the work, and the explanation is the thing that transmits it all and says it all. So it didn't end up mattering what pressure he was under. He did a really killer job at basically being himself.
I was reading some stuff. His mom was a Rosicrucian, which is more like a esoteric Christianity. So that's kind of how he got into all of this, because that's one of the things that they teach about is the mysticism. So this is something that was around him his whole entire life.
Well, he grew up with it. He grew up with it, if he grew up in a decent enough home, then his parents wouldn't have tried to control him too much, and so therefore he could be himself.
Yes. Well, I don't think he knew who his father was.
Okay.
So.
Well, he figured something out because he seemed to have gotten a lot of stuff right. I was listening to the stuff he would talk about, and I thought he was great. He was a great voice for the time, and I'm glad he caught on. I don't know how many people followed him in his day throughout the first half of the century, let's call it. But I hope it was a lot. I hope he made his impact, because I'm not sure. Fifth lines are designed to make an impact sooner or later.
Well, he was he influenced a lot of people, because when he became an ordained minister, he did his first speech, and shortly after they wanted him to become the minister of the church. So, you know, to do that, yes, everybody's, you know, well, not everybody, but some people have gone to church or a religious ceremony. You know, the pastor or who is speaking, they do have to have some type of influence on the congregation. Otherwise, no one's going to be going. So he was able to really articulate and impact everybody that he was talking to and get his message across. I mean, if anybody wants to go and look at any of his lectures, you can find, I mean, there's hours and hours and hours of them on YouTube. So
I find it interesting that this incarnation cross is designed to do what he did. And then the nodes that take him along the trajectory were designed to empower the trajectory he was on. The nodes on the right-hand side said, I am the explanation. And the nodes on the left-hand side says, and when that explanation comes out, if you call me out, I will be called, and you can't stop me. I'm 3420, the power of now. I am the power of now, explaining what I explain. That was his trajectory in life, to be the power of now, explaining what he explains. He couldn't help but to follow that path in his life. It's amazing. Actually, that blows me away.
Yep.
I like it, Jen. I'd say we wrapped up. Manly not Providence Parker. What is his middle name?
I do not know. Hold
Palmer.
on.
Manly.
That's it. I was, as soon as you said Parker, I was like, no, that's
Close, but not it. Manly Palmer. What a regal name. I like it. So, bam, that's a wrap. Thank you, Manly, for doing your deed. You helped raise consciousness on this planet. So I say he did us a solid.
Absolutely. So getting an echo back. I don't know why all of a sudden. So thank you, everybody who tuned in. We hope you enjoyed the show. I should have said at the very beginning of it, if you're looking for the slides that you want to dive into his chart a little bit more, you can find the link within the description. And happy solstice to everybody. And we're going to play two short clips before we exit, but we hope everyone has a wonderful day, and we will see you Sunday. Pop that up real quick. Hold on.
Bye, everyone. Thank you for joining.
Yes.